my first day, I was just like, your average big dumb wrestler. I rolled with patches, and he put me in a triangle, and I like picked him up and almost like I think I almost like killed him. And he was very nice about it. I think he just like let go or something. It was just like, bro, you cannot do that.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rap Esparza, coming to you with another great installment of the Grappling Hour. I hope you're having a great day. You're about to if you aren't. We are starting our week off very nicely today with an excellent guest. We'll get to him in a second, but I mean, this man casually sipping out some water like a champion, and with good reason. He has recently taken home an ADCC Trials bid to the big dance next year. We'll get into that in just a second. But first and foremost, if you like this show, and I hope that you do, I would love it if you could check us out at patreon.com/grappling hour. But Raph, what do I get if I go to patreon.com/grappling hour? For just $5 a month, you can see my interviews 30 days before anybody else. And for a few extra bonus dollars, you can see extra bonus content like tape studies with the athletes talking about their matches where we watch them together. And we do learn a lot. I mean, I do. And it's weird because sometimes I have the right idea or concept, but I don't know where they came up with it, or I don't know how long they've been working on it. So it's a very fascinating thing that we get to do here on the show. So that's part of it. You can also see a segment called Roast Raf, where people roast my competition footage, or even the Grappling Hour Challenge, where people get an assorted deck of cards with submissions on them and try to murder me with that submission. The caveat is I get to roast them. You can ask Chris Wojcik what he thought of that game when he recently did it earlier this year. So lots of fun to be had. GrapplingHour.com on the Patreon. If you like this show as well, you can get you some Grappling Hour merch. Head on over to rapesparza.com/merch. Buy a tank top, a hoodie, a t-shirt. We've been selling a lot more tanks here, and really, we should caveat that with, we know some of you are on the gear. So why are you going to get on the gear if you don't want to show off the guns? Nobody's going to accuse you of being on guns if they don't see them. Think it out loud. rapesparza.com/merch. And of course, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you don't know what you want to comment on in this video, we will give you a prompt by the end of it. And last but not least, I will tell you guys, if you want to continue the conversations that we have here on the show, you can check us out at our Discord at Grappling Hour. All right, let's talk about our guest. Well, I've been a fan of our guest for a good while. He is an excellent fusion of wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and watching his growth as a grappler has been incredible over the past few years. Obviously, when you come in with a wrestling background, you're going to be more exciting than the average bear in our sport. But what was fascinating to see during his trials run was how much he was able to infuse that wrestling background and the many competitions he's had building up to that to an incredible win. And I have to say, just an overall impressive performance. You may also recognize this man from the weekly emails, which quite frankly make me think that I'm not emailing my folks enough. But every time I see him hard on the grind, I say, I think it's time that we welcome to the show one of your ADCC Trials winner, Brandon Reed. Brandon, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to finally have you on here. I know I had reached out at one point. I think you offered like a PDF of some sort, and I remembered sending you a note being like, oh, this is very helpful. And, you're a very friendly person and you compete well. I've seen you compete a lot, but I'm so glad we finally get to amend that. It had to take for you to win ADCC Trials to trigger that part of my brain. But what did it feel like to actually accomplish the goal of winning ADCC Trials, sir?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it was a bit of a relief, like a bit of a weight off of my shoulders. just because like the last time I did ADCC, I got an invite because of all the CJI one drama. Um, and like when you get invited, especially in my case, it was kind of like a weird, once in a lifetime situation. You don't really feel like you belong there, and I don't even know that I believed that I could do well when I did ADCC last time because of the invite. And I think this time I just kind of feel like I belonged. Like I feel like it's like okay, uh, I'm undeniable at this point and I really didn't have that before. So more than anything, it was just a relief and then kind of a bit of a confidence builder.
I'm glad you say that, but I will be honest. I had the reverse reaction when you got named as somebody during that whole drama time. I said, "Oh, that's a good person to fill it in." And I'm sure the internet will have its opinions, but part of the whole appeal of ADCC is that we get different styles. And for you, you do an excellent job of pushing pace, which sometimes people game the system and they're not concerned about pace. So for
Yeah.
me, dude, I was super stoked when you got in. I'm sure the internet had its opinions, and it will never be short of it. But dude, I didn't question any part of that. In fact, if anything, I said, "Oh, I think these people are about to be surprised." So you get this relief, you get this nice moment. We'll get into the match by match here in a second, but by and large, when something like that happens, like when does the thought of even competing at ADCC enter your head? I ask this because for a lot of wrestlers who come into our world and really make this their own, I don't know that ADCC is top of mind. When did this goal kind of manifest itself for you?
Well, it was actually while I was still wrestling. I
Mm.
think it was like the summer of 2020. So right before my last wrestling season started, I saw I was just chilling in my like my summer apartment in the university, and I saw like the Nicky Rod documentary come up on YouTube, and I watched it. And that's when I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. Uh, after I finished wrestling in college, I just want to start doing jujitsu. And then I kind of forgot about it for a little bit. And then when my last season ended in March of 2021, I started doing jujitsu like 2, 3 times a week. And then slowly, about like a year in, I started to go full time. So um, really, I guess like the seed that was planted was that Nicky Rod documentary. And then about a year after I started doing jujitsu, I was like, okay, I could probably actually try to do this full time.
That's pretty impressive. Now, with that being said, we'll get into timelines later, but like when that goal is going in your head, how much jujitsu training have you had at that point?
Zero. Like so my wrestling coach was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu under Chewy. So I trained with Chewy like maybe like 3 or 4 times in the summer of 2020. Or in 2019, I trained like 3 or 4 times. So maybe I did like 8 jiu-jitsu sessions between 2020 and or 2019 and 2021 before I actually started training jiu-jitsu. But I just kind of did it for fun. Like I just went and wrestled with Chewy and wrestled with some of the guys at his gym. Didn't even really do much jiu-jitsu. Like he wouldn't even allow people to put submissions on me because I was still, in I guess near my wrestling season, I guess you could say. So um, yeah, it was basically like after I finished wrestling like, in March, I got a little bit bored, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna just start practicing this a little bit more at a gym called 13 Jiu Jitsu, and then after I graduated college, I moved back to Louisville, and that's when I started to train like full time with Chewy, and I was like, okay, well, we can try this.
You know what's so wild to me is that the way sometimes regionally things work out. Like you could have gone anywhere, been with anybody, and of all people you're going to run into, you run into one of the biggest names that we have in our sport, who's a incredible ambassador, pretty kind dude, and
Mhm.
Chewy is known for these really good technique breakdowns. And what's been great is I brought him on Verbal Tap years before he started a podcast, just because I've always had with this mindset of what do you like? And super kind, super nice. It was no surprise to me when I saw him not only start a podcast, but be so successful at it because he has a great way of talking with people. And yet, of all people whose gyms you're going to run into or be connected with right off the bat, that's a pretty good person to be connected with, especially for somebody who I love Chewy's takes a lot of the times, but Chewy's no stranger to letting us know we should probably do a little bit more wrestling as jiu-jitsu people. So I think
Oh
you've
yeah,
got it.
definitely.
Let me ask this before I go any further. We'll get to a little bit more origin story here in a second, but I want to point something out in case people haven't caught it, or maybe they're just waiting for me to catch it. But I want to point out right behind you is an exercise bike. Now, sir,
Yeah,
why do you hate yourself that much that an exercise bike can't get too far from you and that you can't even get
yeah.
on a computer before it stares at you and makes you do work?
Yeah, it's my torture machine, right? Like I tell people like when I'm in prep right now I'm a bit injured after trials I got a little injured, but when I'm actually in prep for a competition, I do assault bike sprints twice a week,
Mm.
like religiously, right? So usually I've been doing them I guess since the CGI camp started 12 weeks before CGI all the way up till ADCC Trials. So for about I guess 5 months, I do it twice a week and I don't know. It's like my religion. I'm like, if I can't be as good as some of these guys at jujitsu, my cardio, I can make sure that I'm in really, really good shape. So I think it's like the best, worst way to kind of keep me tough and keep my conditioning up. And I like to keep it close.
It's haunting me at this point. It looks like one of the
Yeah,
Christmas ghosts to me at this time where, I'm just trying to
yeah,
do an interview here, get some information, have a good discussion. And just somewhere in the background of this, I just see this bike literally beckoning and calling into me just like this. And it just
yeah,
it's a little disconcerting. So I'm gonna try and zoom in a little bit more on you and not the bike
yeah.
because I don't
It's
want
a
to
little
see
evil, I know.
it. Having said that,
Yeah.
let's do this. Let's kind of take your case by case. How long did you say you were putting together a camp for specifically ADCC this go round?
So for ADCC, I got invited pretty last minute, right?
Oh,
So
I'm so sorry for trials.
oh, okay, okay. So yeah, for trials, I did. Well, to be honest, I only did like a 2 week tune up at PSF for trials. So I don't know if people know, I live in Canada, right? But my team is PSF, Daisy Fresh. So I'll go there and do like camps. But because of CJI and then Nogi Pans and Grapple Fest, I was kind of already in camp leading up to trials. Like I never really stopped camp. I went and did like a little 2 week tune up at PSF in Mount Vernon. So I guess yeah, I only really had like a 2 week camp for trials technically, but I mean really I've been in camp for since June, so never really stopped.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's in the goal. It's something that you're looking to do. Tell me a little bit of what your week leading into it looks like. So if you're coming from Canada, there's probably going to be a little bit travel. You have to go down to Florida, which nobody likes, but that's a lot of traveling to do. So how quickly are you traveling, and when are you getting there in terms of that week of competition for trials?
So I wasn't in Canada. I was in Mount Vernon, Illinois for like 2 weeks, like I guess like technically 3 weeks prior to the week of trial. So I was in the US. And then the week of I like leave Illinois, fly to Florida, and then I'm there for about 3 or 4 days before I compete. And yeah, we don't really do much training, right? Like you fly, you get there, you move around a little bit for a couple days before, maybe do a couple like situational rounds or something. But really, the work is done. So the goal is just stay healthy and like keep your legs and like lungs open and moving, and not really doing more damage to yourself than you need to.
Mm. So, okay, weigh-ins happen, things go well, you're now starting to see your bracket. What's the first thing that goes through your mind for the bracket? Because for me, I'm trying to watch at home. We do a fight companion. So all week as you guys are competing, I'm legitimately doing like a telethon of watch mat 6, watch mat 2. This is a dope match here. You're here, and you became somebody of a big interest to us because sometimes you can start feeling momentum for people, and I felt like momentum was very high for you. So we were trying to keep as much on it as possible. But as much as I'm a planner, I don't see the brackets until 10 p.m. Pacific time. You guys
Yeah.
might see it maybe a smidge earlier than me. So do you see your brackets before you go to bed, or Is that something you wake up the next day? And then what is the first thing you think of when you see those brackets?
Yeah, so I saw my bracket in the morning, the day of day one. So obviously, there's a bit of like anxiety, going in. Yeah, like when I got my bracket, like my side of the bracket, I got the 2 seed. Damon Ramos got the 1 seed, and on my side of the bracket, it was extremely like wrestle heavy. So I think I wrestled. I went against like two really good wrestlers, and there were a lot of really good wrestlers on my side. And the other side of the bracket tended to have a lot more of the closer to more jujitsu-y type guys. Um, so I kind of looked at my side of the bracket and I was like, dang it, I'm gonna have to wrestle so much. And because I was like planning to just pass guard, and I prefer going against like more regular jiu-jitsu guys versus like really good wrestlers. But unfortunately, I had to go against really good wrestlers, and so my mind was just kind of like, all right, well, I kind of know, I kind of can expect what this is going to be like. So take it one match at a time and just kind of be ready for scraps, because under ADCC rules, especially because it's only 6 minutes, it's actually very hard to break someone, especially with like takedowns and the way I like to wrestle. So I was just like, I know I'm just gonna have to be patient. I'm gonna have to hand fight hard, and I'm gonna have to like win some closer matches. And I guess that's kind of how it turned out.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because one of my favorite things when I talk with athletes is they pride themselves sometimes on their ability to break people. But then I remind them, I'm like, well, 6 minutes is a hard amount of time, especially if the first 3 minutes are without points. So,
Hmm.
it's a good goal, and I'm hoping you can do that. But not all of us are gifted that way. Sometimes you're going to have to take the very long pathway up. Having said that, I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily, as I was watching you, get concerned, for a thought of cardio or anything like that. I just kind of realized for you, it's more so trying to be in the moment stylistically with these people because if you get too caught up, it's very easy that you don't get to play your game. So it's really just trying to implement your game as quickly as possible. And if you're on a great win, you continue with that. So let's go ahead and kind of go match by match. I'm actually pulling them up right here. Do you remember who you win against in your first match, sir?
Uh, Honestly, I don't know. Like, I think his name was Josh something. I think he was just like a purple belt or something. A cool guy, but I think, like that first day tends to be a little bit more of like hobbyist in pretty much every weight class. So it was a pretty quick match, right? I think I hit like a super duck and then a rear naked choke in like 30 seconds or something. But
Yeah,
that's kind of like how the first day almost always goes at ADCC Trials. So I kind of knew like, yeah, that match was probably gonna be pretty quick, and then day two, the grind was gonna start.
for sure. And I mean, it's kind of weird for every weight class has its thing. Every weight class has its ups or its downs. For your particular day in question, you only had to win that one match to go to day two, correct?
Yeah, correct.
How do you feel about that? Because to me, I almost feel like I have to warm up a little bit more because it's almost lopsided. You have one match for that one day, but day two is going to be the actual, like, oh man, that's going to be more than one match on that day. Like, how are you able to pace yourself for those two very different needs for those days?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I actually think it sucks. Like, I wish they would go one more round on day one, because day two hurts, right? Like, I was just in I was like physically in pain during day two, especially because I didn't actually have an easy match on day two, whereas I had quite an easy match on day one. So, if it was me, I would have had them push it one more match further, like let us wrestle through then the next round, because it's just hard to prepare, right? I have to warm up hard before my matches because I have a really dynamic style, and it's like if I don't want to get hurt, I have to do really dynamic warm ups, and it kind of sucks to do that for only one match because every time you do a warm up, right, it takes a little bit more out of you. That's what I believe. So, managing a 2 day tournament like that, especially when it's like one day you have one match and the next day you have four, it can be pretty annoying. If it was me, I would just do trials all in one day, but I know they can't do that. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
For sure. I mean, the other counterbalance of that is yes, other people have more matches on day one. It's just kind of how the
Yeah,
brackets go, and
yeah,
sometimes, you know, we see people who don't make it to day two. It's very rare though that the people you think are going to go pretty far don't go to day two. I think
yeah,
it's a little
exactly.
bit more of if a shock is going to happen, it's once or twice that day. And I felt like
Yeah.
this year there weren't too many people that I didn't expect not to make it to day two that didn't. Having said that, in other brackets, you're relieved when you finally get to that halfway point of, all right, now we're cutting it off because we've got it so that they only have 4 matches for tomorrow. For you, it's
Yeah.
like, well, could we have gone to 8 on
Yeah.
day one? That would have been a little bit more fun. Having said that, the reason why I put this out there is so that if people aren't familiar with the journey you had to take, we start to signpost to them, you have a true hero's journey on day two. And part of that
Yeah.
is when you're talking about like, hey man, I got injured, people know that happens, or something like you feel like the wear and tear is there. We're talking like long matches, grindy matches, and ones where even as I was watching, I didn't always know who was winning or how it was going because it's partially interpretation at times. And there are
Mhm.
moments where, as we're watching along, if I have 6 or 7 different matches, my attention span can only do so much. So it's not until the last like semifinals and finals that I can fully ingest your performance by it is. But like, I'll tell you one thing when we finally get there, but I'll just announce it to you now. The minute you got your submission, and I think it was a knee bar that was at the semifinals,
And
I
guillotine.
was legitimately happy for you because I said, like, that's one less match that goes the distance for you. And it
Yeah.
happened in such a surprising quick fashion that I was like, oh, did he get that? And they're already clean the mats. And I don't even see it. I just have to think, like, I'm going to have to check the highlight a little bit later. So I was
Yeah.
happy for you on that. But let's talk about day two. What happens on day two in your first match? And I can help jog your memory here because I do have all the matches. It does look on that day, it is against a gentleman, B. Jackson from Primitive Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're a Robert Drysdale affiliate. He was really good. I didn't know who he was, and all I had seen was the match before, and his wrestling looked super sweet. And so I was like, oh man, who the heck is this guy? So I looked him up, and I was like, oh, okay. He wrestled 4 years Division One at VMI, and I was like, all right, this is going to be a really hard freaking match. He's a big athletic dude, so kind of honestly, the game plan was just go in there and try to take him down and take his back. And I knew, like stylistically, I do really well against other really good wrestlers because I think like I have a little bit of an edge in the hand fighting. So if you don't really know wrestling too well, you might look at some of my matches and be like, oh, he's not like shooting much or he's not scoring a lot. But like that's not really the game plan under ADCC rules, right? It's not to just have like a mass or a high frequency of shots, right? It's to have like a high accuracy of shots, right? So if I'm going to shoot 5 times, I want to score 5 times. I don't want to shoot 20 and score once. In a match like this, my goal was kind of just continuously clearing hands. I knew he had a good underhook, high crotch, so just always killing the underhook when I could, and kind of finding my opening for whatever takedown he gave me. And in that match, he gave me a duck under, which I guess it's my signature takedown now for most people. And end up taking his back and scoring near like the last minute or two.
Similar but different. I know in our world that points aren't always as appreciated as a submission. But I just know when you have a grind of a day and you're eking out those 3 points, the relief, the accomplishment that is, it's no easy feat, especially when you feel like, is he going to get those points in time?
Yeah, it's hard. I have faith in myself. I'm pretty good at understanding how to score under short time. Or even if I don't score, I have a lot of experience under ADCC rule sets now. I've done tons of opens, I've done tons of trials, and I've done ADCC. So even in matches where there's no score, I'm pretty confident I understand how to win. Let's call it like the ghost advantages. That's what I call it under ADCC rules.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I have more faith in you than me. So, yes, I would amend that conversation to say that because we do certain drills for my guys in my room, and you refer to it as ghost advantage. I like to call it vibes. So when I tell my students, I'm like, sometimes we'll have somebody recording who had points in a round. And if I'm doing it, sometimes I'll be doing points right on. And then sometimes I'll do points that are slightly off. And sometimes the kids will be looking at me like, "Hey, coach, that wasn't 2 points. That he didn't do this." And I'm just holding up two. I'm like, "You can't talk to the ref." They're like, "But that wasn't two." And they wait until the end of the round. They're like, "Hey, coach, that wasn't 2 points." And I was like, "Yeah, you got to get used to that, man. That might happen." And sure as shit, they went to go compete at a Naga, and all of a sudden, when advantages are sometimes given points or submission attempts are given points, my kids came up to me and they're like, "Coach, the vibes were really high in that match." And I go, "Uh oh. All right,
Yeah.
just send me the footage or I'll be right there." If I'm coaching somewhere else, I'm like, "Yeah, it's not going to be a fun one to watch." Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for athletes to, if you always set up for success, then you will be surprised when external factors come into play. So it's really important to learn how to keep your cool and to sometimes just find your way to score on the clock. And for you to be able to do that, that's a huge skill. It's incredibly time sensitive. The reason why I do profess some skepticism is ADCC is the hardest rule set to get the points for. They
Super hard.
take their time. In other places, I haven't even gotten the hooks in, and I've been like, did they just give me the back points already? Tight. Like, I'm stoked. ADCC, it's not just the 3 count, it's the holding, making sure if you've established control, it feels like you're taking a full vacation in between those moments.
Yeah, it's slow.
So for you, sure, but sometimes even 30 seconds doesn't feel like enough time to do something that in other formats you would get. So you don't want to take advantage of those things. But yeah, I was very happy to see you were able to do that. Now we go into match number two. For match number two of day two, you then are going up against the Santos, and that one goes the entire time. So we're talking that plus overtime going the full time. You're going to pick up the win, but what can you tell me from your perspective about that match?
Yeah, that is kind of where he's a young kid. I think he's like 18, 19 years old. He's a really good wrestler too. Um, I think this is something that I still struggle with as someone who's competed a lot in jiu-jitsu. And at some point, especially in a jiu-jitsu match, if you're going against someone who's also a good wrestler, Kyle is a very good wrestler. He's a multiple time undefeated state champion from Virginia. Like, one of the issues is that under wrestling rules, people are forced to create action.
Mm,
Under jiu-jitsu rules, it's not quite the same. In that match, I felt like I actually had high frequency of attacks. I think I shot like about 10 times versus like one shot from him. I felt like I could never get him to like fully engage and push forward into me. And so that's where it does matter to understand initiations under ADCC rules, because initiations do matter and initiations get marked under ADCC rules. And when someone is not necessarily, I'm not going to call it stalling, but when someone isn't necessarily pushing in or truly engaging, but they're still wrestling and they're tough and hard to get to, you have to win the initiations, meaning every time I take a shot, that's initiation, that counts. And then with him, I felt it was extremely hard to get him to open up, meaning he wasn't necessarily being very offensive, but he wasn't going to get scored on either because he did the right things, elbows in, stayed in a good stance, never really overcommitted to anything. So I knew that honestly that match was probably going to go the distance because he has a very, very good Darce. So I was like, I'm not going to take any stupid risk. I'm going to win this the right way. And then he understood the sports too, or he understood ADCC rules too. And I think I hit about 10 shots in the overtime, just 10 ankle picks, like 10 quick ankle picks. And I knew I was super far up on initiations. And he tried to like Eminari roll me. And then I just, smashed him from his Eminari roll. And then he got a negative, and that's how I won the match. And it's just kind of like one of those gritty wrestling matches that are a little bit less like a wrestling match and more like a wrestling under ADCC rules match, which is very, very different. I've talked to people about this a lot. It's like under wrestling rules, that match actually is a lot easier, just because of the dynamic of forced action. But under jiu-jitsu rules, it's still quite frustrating. At seminars, I get asked this all the time, like, what do you do if no one's like, they're not like truly engaging? Like they're touching you, but they're not engaging. It's a very big difference. It's kind of like you just got to be patient. And under ADCC rules, you have to win the initiations because you can't really force anything, especially on a stage that's this big and important. And I knew that if he opened up, I was eventually going to score. He's going to get a negative, and that's pretty much what happened.
I'm glad you bring that up because there's a lot of what I talk about in my room as well, where I like to tell our wrestlers, I'm like, you do have an advantage, but you have to be very wary of dropping what the interpretation of action is going to be. Because you can have action from bottom, but it is harder to argue that the person on bottom is necessarily doing action if they're being inactive. So there's a weird interpretation rule. Sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. But I'll have my wrestler sometimes saying, like, he wasn't provoking the action. And I'll be like, right, but they created more connection, or they were trying to do more sweeps, or the shots on clock might be a little bit higher for the person on bottom, and it just might not seem that way. So I'm so glad that those moments in these matches are critical to me to highlight, like, that's just how you compete at that level. And we're talking really just the smallest of details that really do make it so that you either win or you lose. And I think that most athletes come in thinking, like, okay, if somebody beats me by points or beats me by submission, I can understand if I win or lose. If they get to what is essentially a tie score where nobody scores, and they think, well, I should probably get this because of X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't go to their expectation, it might be that they're not as familiar with the rule set. And for ADCC, there are very clear delineations of this person's engaging, this person's doing this. So when you're taking 10 shots, what you do see is, oh, that person's trying to do something. You do see somebody being like, all right, well, you can make the argument that guy was trying to lead the dance and the other person was reacting more off of it. So it
Yeah,
is
that's it.
very
And then
important to know that.
yeah, I mean, it's huge. It's what I tell people all the time when I'm teaching. It's like you have to understand that under ADCC rules, initiations are probably the most important thing when there's no score, right? And if the ref sees that your a partner's just like thumb blocking on your shoulder while you're shooting the whole time, that guy's not going to win. And that's kind of what happens a lot, especially in jiu-jitsu. But under ADCC rules, it really gets punished, which is one of the things that I like about it. Is because like under IBJJF rules, it can be quite difficult to take people down, just like under ADCC rules, but they don't quite get penalized as hard as they do in ADCC for, wrestling tough, I call it, thumb blocking, keeping legs back, not necessarily running away, but not actually engaging in action, right? So it can make someone who's a much worse wrestler look much tougher than they actually are, because the rules kind of allow for it. So you just got to know how to, get past that using the rules.
Yeah, one thing I do find when we're doing these live telecasts is that normally I'm doing some play by play on them. What I find fascinating is because I do different commentary gigs, I do MMA play by play, I've done jiu-jitsu play by play, and even though this is in an unofficial capacity, in a much more fun capacity, sorry, Flo. But when I'm watching it, you do see me in real time saying, like, oh, I actually thought this person was winning, but now I'm starting to see this other person. So you see me in real time trying to be objective about how the points stand. And I don't always get 100% right, but I'm usually able to explain in the time it's happening why I think something is changing, or even though it's scoreless, this might be why this person walks away with the decision. And there were a couple times during the broadcast where the action completely stopped. And when the action stopped, it was because people would go over and have a discussion off air. And then it becomes is this match still going? Or,
Yeah.
oh, they're having a very long talk about this. Okay. And I know that is terrifying as an athlete to be in those moments, but they do happen. So, having said that, we will move on to your next match. So, after you have that Santos match that goes all the way, we have a good moment. We have you getting a submission finish in a minute 21. It's got to feel pretty good. What's going through your mind as you pick up the submission against a very, very seasoned competitor?
Yeah, I mean, it felt really good because he submitted me last year. So uh, it felt great. I mean, that felt better than even winning the finals, which was also kind of a revenge win. But Amir, he submitted me in like 20, 30 seconds with a go-go plata 2 trials ago. And obviously that was pretty humiliating. Um, and so I really wanted that match back. I kind of figured when like Flo asked me who I thought was going to like be my semifinal opponent, like if I were to make it to semis on day one, and I was like, Amir for sure. Like he's probably gonna submit his way to the semis, and he did. The dude's just a savage, and so yeah, it felt really good. He's a nice guy. He's a really good person. But like at the end of the day, he submitted me and highlight rode me a couple times, on Instagram. So it felt good to kind of get that back and be able to throw it back a little bit.
I mean, for me, even though it happened so quickly, I don't think I saw the submission in real time. I might have seen a replay or one of the highlights on there, but I was kind of relieved because somewhere in the back of my head, as I'm watching so many people for your through line, as I realize, it's looking pretty good for you. I'm like, dude, I would like for somebody to have a rest going into the finals, like a little bit of energy conservation because you don't know what's going to happen in that final. You don't know how much
Yeah.
energy you got in the gas tank you're going to need because you're so close. And although it is great to podium, you are right. You do want to go out there and make a statement after getting that bid and like telling people like this
Mhm.
is real. And it was not only valid that they went to you, but that for you, you can hush any concern while at the same time advancing this year and doing it on your own accord. So now we get to the finals. What's going through your head as you're about to enter this match?
I mean, nothing. Like I said, I had a tough match with Nick a month before this in the Nogi Pans finals, and I lost by DQ, um, off of just some stupid stuff. I did what you said not to do. I talked to the ref, and that was like I was winning the match by 2 points with like 12 seconds left, and I asked the ref like, did I get my points? But I had two penalties or maybe three. I don't know whatever the next one would be to become a DQ. So I think two, three. Um, and yeah, I got DQ'd and then I lost to Nick in a very, very close match, right? That I was winning, but a loss is a loss, even if it's by DQ. I just didn't know the rules. It gave me a big L. Um, and so, kind of, my thing was I had a bit of a game plan because Nick does very specific things in matches, and I was like, okay, to kind of slow the action down, and I wanted to try to avoid that because in our last match, he did a really good job of just slowing me down. So the goal was, you know, I know pretty much his offense is going to be trying to leg lock me, and I'm like, I have the best leg lockers in the world in my room, and I'm very hard to leg lock, so I wasn't too worried about that. It was more just I just kind of keep the action going, like don't let him just hold you in half guard. So I was just like, let's take some more risk. Like, let's give a little bit here so we can like actually maybe potentially score and not let it go to the ref's decision. And like right before the match, I was just like, I just felt it. Like I was like, I'm gonna win this. I in my part, I won our last match, even though I technically didn't. So I was like, this is the time to get it back.
There's a moment I want to say, like right at the 2 minute mark or something, where it looks like he's got a shot at reversing a takedown, but you stay really heavy with it. And then there's this what I call the high step out of it, where you were just like, yeah, dude, I'm not letting you anywhere near my legs. Now I can work on passing. And once I saw
Yeah.
that happening, I was like, maybe this is where we get the best of both of their games. Because if he can play from that pulled guard, we're going to see him playing at his best. And now for you, even though wrestling is your base and that it's a really strong thing, usually it is bypassing the idea that like, man, you're pretty good at guard passing too. So now you get to see how these two are going to clash. And I thought like that's what I want in a final. Like I want to see something competitive and that shows you guys off. But tell me then after you kind of see that he's now playing guard and that you're reenacting, you're getting another chance to go up against him. Like, how good do you feel at this point your opportunities are going to be to get past that guard and really implement what you want to implement at that time?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like all I'm thinking about is like my specific goals. Like I'm trying to connect hands to hands and I'm trying to put him on his back. I couldn't really do that in the match, so I was okay with the fact that I was probably going to end up in half guard or close guard because I'm really good from passing from those positions. But if people who actually like know Nick, he plays a really forward and very good seated guard. And when you try to close distance, he kind of scoots backward and like he'll scoot backwards and cut angle. So it's like very hard to close distance and like front headlock Nick. Um, and which means it's also very hard to actually put him on his back without your legs getting entangled. So uh, as I was moving side to side, or I was doing my like left to right outside passing, I felt like I could never get close enough to get an actual angle because he's so good at like scooting back and to an angle himself. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna take a risk, here and try to knee cut him. And if I end up in half guard or close guard, I know I'm gonna be fine. And that's kind of where we ended up. And I was like really confident that if I take a little bit of a risk, I don't necessarily want to say specifically what risk I took and why I did it because I'm sure we'll have another match again. But I took a little bit of a risk and it kind of paid off in the end. And in our first match, I didn't really take any risk like that. And I think that was kind of the big difference, was taking a little bit more risk.
Understood. I just want to point out, though, toward the end of that match, the thrilling exchange that does happen as the regulations closing out. Last 30 seconds, he gets a opportunity to do something with your leg. You're able to turn that into almost a back take with points. So this is where I bring up the idea of like, it's not for nothing. You're trying to get those points. It's just hard to establish. But you were looking so close to getting those back take points in that regulation that to me was like looking at it and saying, I mean, it's about as close as you can get with 20 seconds left, and it looked really good. That, of course, takes you to what is going to be the last like few seconds of action, which is going to be that. How does that get computed? What goes on there? I'm sorry, my apologies. It's the last few seconds, and then they actually look at it, and now they're going to come up with the decision. What's going on in your head as you're waiting from that moment? Because to you, it's got to look like, hey man, I pretty clearly was looking at a back exposure here. But to everybody else, because they didn't put up the points, it's not a for sure thing.
They put up the points after, so I got 3 points. So I took the back with about 7 seconds left, and I secured the points. Mo came up and was like, "Yeah, that's points," and then the head judge was like, "Yeah, that's points," because they didn't know at first if it was points or not because of the time. And then they're like, "Yeah, it's points." So I actually did score 3 points at the end. Um, Ideally, like I like when people try to attack my legs because one of the cons of leg locks for like lots of guys who that's pretty much what they do is they often will give up their back. And in that match, and his leg lock is actually he was in a saddle. It was extremely tight, but I did just enough to split the feet. And as he tried to bite down on my heel, I was able to slip that and kind of get to that little wedging back take position. I just do that a lot, with lots of really, really good guys. So it was good to not panic. And I think if people watch me compete, actually, I think my best thing as far as scoring goes is not even takedowns. It's taking the back. And so like when I got there, I was like, I know I knew I was going to score even with a short time. And that's what they were reviewing was whether or not I got points, and I did, and that's how I won. So I won 3-0.
See, this is why it's confusing because at home, to me, it looked like you had it. And I was just waiting for the assurance that they were going to say you did. But I'm also weary of the fact that because ADCC is so particular on how long it takes to establish, my thought was you do that, we go home, we're done. You don't do that, we go to overtime. But what is not confirming it is not seeing it on the scoreboard. So, yes, they do have to review it, but it didn't even register. We just got to the decision after that. So, there's this kind of like moment when you're watching for a TV experience that we don't see Mo say that. And you might hear the commentators kind of briefly mention it, but I have it on mute. So you're just watching it from a TV product as is. And
Yeah.
it is part of the reason why you almost, if you're calling an audible like that and it's not on screen, you would normally, for like football, that won't happen. You know,
Yeah.
in football, they're gonna be like, everybody, we're gonna run that back under review, last call, timeout being taken by team one. So you kind of know what's going on. Here, when you're just
Mhm.
like, and Mo magically appears, it's like, well, not on my TV. So that's why there's that air of confusion where you're kind of looking at it being like, I think he wins. Oh, right. That's where he won. Because at the desk when we were watching it for that long, I was like, all right, cool. They are going to give you those points. We are going to
Yeah.
see you move forward. But for a good 5 minutes or so, or 2 minutes really, of TV time, you're just sitting there a little confused. Like, is what I saw going to be awarded, or are they going to pull some hijinks and we're going to overtime? So I'm glad you were very secure in knowing you got it and that it ended up working in
Yeah.
your favor.
Yeah, yeah, I was super secure, and I mean, I saw Mo, the head judge, and then the judges on the table, like they were all right there just talking, and like everyone was pretty much like, "Yeah, we think he got the points," but they just had to rewatch it, and then they're like, "Okay, yeah, it's points." And I heard like when they said, "Yeah, it's points," I was like, "Okay, I won." And then they held up the three, and then they're like, "Or it's three, right? I think it was three."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Okay, that's it, that's the match," and that's when I was like, "Okay, good." Um, Obviously, like if it went to overtime, I was actually pretty confident in my ability to win in
Mhm.
overtime too. So I was ready, for whatever. But I was extremely. I mean, I'm very under ADCC rules. I'm very very secure about like when I've scored. And I was like, I scored like 100%. I scored.
Yeah.
And that's why I hustled super hard in that last 20 seconds when I got to the back. I was like, I'm gonna score this. Um, and yeah, I did. It worked out.
It certainly did. And you know what, man? I was so happy to see your journey kind of happen there. I'm so happy to see you get this kind of good recognition because your resume has been very interesting. You've been all over the place. So this year has been
Yeah,
insane in the amount of stuff you've been able to do and the different places you've been able to go. And I feel like if you're going to close out a good year like this, I was looking at that. I thought, man, yeah, that's somebody who I do want to see next year. That's somebody who I do want to see back at ADCC. So that'll be a lot of fun. Um,
yeah.
but I do have a few questions here. Okay.
Mhm.
So this is kind of individually different of, I guess, ADCC in itself, but maybe a little bit helpful in the terms of your team. At what point did you kind of link up with the Daisy Fresh folks? Because what seems like your addition to them, for me as a admirer of your grappling, as I was like, you fit like a good piece I felt like they needed. So what attracted you to them, and what have you gained from that kind of association thus far in?
Yeah, I mean, I just looked up to Pixley a lot. Pixley was someone when I was like in college. He actually he wrestled at the same college as me, but he left before I got into school, right? So he had transferred right after. So he was like one of our national finalists at my university, Lindsey Wilson. So I kind of knew about Pixley for a long time, and then we competed in the 2021 IBJJF Nogi Worlds, and then you kind of build a relationship after that. And I don't know, it's like I looked up at the guy a lot, and I saw him win ADCC before I was a part of the team, and I was very much like I just want to be a part of this team, and so I reached out to Pix and I was like, hey, can I stay at your house for like a week with my girlfriend and just see like what PSF is like? Like, I don't know, maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. Chewy was super cool with it. He was like, yeah, you should, just go see what like that's what you like. And I went out there for a week. I fell in love with it, and then when I came back home, I was like, well, this is going to be my team for sure. And then yeah, I just started competing for them, and I started traveling and training with them as much as possible. And I mean, I think I've been there a million times now since I joined the team. Uh, and I don't know. I just loved it, and it really solidified uh, during the ADCC camp because I wasn't originally in ADCC during the ADCC camp. I just came to do the ADCC camp to help out Pixley because I was like, he probably wants another wrestler. And then like I got 2 weeks into the ADCC camp, I think. Mo reached out and asked me if I wanted the spot because someone had pulled out, and because I got third at trials that year, he was like, "Well, do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure. I'll jump in." And then that ADCC camp, I think, is like when my relationship with Daisy Fresh really built, and I was already a part of the team, but then is when I became like it became like a family, like more than just Pixley. It became Heath, it became CJ, Josh, Couch, everyone else that no one knows about, and that's I think kind of the start of it, which is really last year, but it feels like a lot longer.
It does, but it was also, like I said, when it was announced that you were working with them, I just said, I can kind of see that. And obviously, Pixley is an incredible competitor, so that's got to be a good person to be able to work with and get that kind of training in. But then it begs the question, why Canada? Like, why are you particularly in Canada? Like, how does one get there? Because to me, I'm trying to follow the journey here, sir. And I'm trying to go to all the different places you're going to. So when I'm like, all right, if you're working with the PSF folks, you're not in Louisville. Where were you born and raised? And then how do you end up in Canada?
Yeah, I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. Um, then I met my girlfriend a bit ago, like when I graduated college, and then she's Canadian. She's from Montreal, and so at some point, she couldn't just stay in the U.S. It's actually quite difficult for Canadians to stay in the States. And no offense to Louisville, but I mean, I've told people this is my hometown. It's where I was born and raised. I don't quite like the city very much, and I also don't like the city of Mount Vernon. I love my PSF family and stuff, but I'm like a guy that home is not necessarily where a jiu-jitsu gym is. Home is where it feels homey. So I went up and visited Canada a couple times. Liked the training, liked the environment, liked the people, liked the culture. And then I moved to Quebec, Montreal, and then I lived there for 2 years. And then I just recently moved to Guelph, Ontario, Canada, which is more southern Ontario, much closer to the States. But I love Canada, everything about it. I mean, there was really no reason for me to stay in Louisville, and I always tell everyone, like I don't want to live in Mount Vernon either. So uh, I always tell myself like I'm a lot more than just jujitsu. I was a lot more than just wrestling, and um, there's great training everywhere, and I can do my camps with PSF. But I want to be somewhere that when it's time to retire, this is where I want to be, And so that's kind of why I'm here.
Good for you. What is jujitsu training like where you're at? I've got a lot of Canadian friends who train, and a lot of them are actually pretty good. For you, what have you noticed, if anything, that may be different than maybe the training that we have here in the States?
Uh, I don't know if I mean, I don't really know. I mean, it's quite normal, right? Like I train at I'm training right now. I'm injured, right? But like I'm usually here training at Omerta, which is my home gym in Guelph, Ontario. When I was in Montreal, I was training at TriStar,
Mm.
and then I was kind of training around at other places in Montreal. I thought one of the cool things about Canada is that there's a lot of cross training, right? I don't really know personally in America because I don't have that much experiences with American gyms. I have
Mm.
way more experiences with Canadian gyms than American ones, but there's just a lot of cross training. Now I live in like essentially the greater Toronto area, the GTA, right? So I have lots of really good training partners at Omerta, but I also have like lots of good training partners in Mississauga or Toronto proper. It's really cool because there's just lots of really good guys in the GTA to train with. And then when I was in Montreal, there was pretty good guys too, and a very leg lock heavy city in
Mm.
Montreal too, I think because of for us and the 10 planets there. So yeah, I mean it's pretty good. I mean there's a lot of training, there's a lot of good opportunities. I just think that uh, there hasn't been a lot of like really well-known Canadian grapplers yet. I mean, obviously you have Dante, you have Max, you have Ethan Crellenston, you have I think the Corbys are originally Canadian, and you have Brianna St. Marie. But I think there's less people in Canada, so I guess there's like less likely to be like I don't know, like standout guys, but I still think that like I have lots of really good tough partners, and I also don't. I'm not married to the idea that you have to constantly be training at PSF or B Team or New Wave or something like that in order to get really good. 80% of my training is here, 20% of it's in the States at PSF, and I do just fine because I have really good structure, and I want to get better, and I think that's the number one. I would say determinant. I don't know. it's the number one thing for success, rather than just like where you're training. It's just how you decide to train and what you put into it.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of pulling the most out of my training partners. So when sometimes my blue belts are like, well, what can we do? And I'm like, funny. It's how do you
Yeah, a lot.
simulate what you need? And we had a guest come in about a week ago, and I had my white belts working with him. And I was like, you're clearly better than them, but we're going to figure out a way to kind of maximize your training with them. And he sent me the
100%.
most polite text afterwards when he was going to his competition. He's like, dude, I was telling people what we did and we had a blast and we really appreciated what you did. I was like, hey, man, if you're a visitor, we'll give you the works, especially if you've got a big tournament. But you're going to come in thinking, like, well, this is just a set of white belts. And I'm like, right. But there's ways to even it out. And I like to put a lot of scenarios together that I think are very helpful for people and game almost structure and stuff like that. So I think there's always a way to maximize this. You mentioned a little bit earlier about your origin stories, but I always like to ask people about their very first days. So you mentioned how you got brought in based off of your wrestling. You had done it a few times with Chewy. What do you specifically remember about that first day you were doing jiu-jitsu or that first class?
Yeah, like for my first actual jujitsu class, like my first true, like I don't even count those training sessions with Chewy as jujitsu because we weren't really doing jujitsu or just wrestling. So I'd count like when I started with Pat, my original coach Patches Childers at 13 Jiu-Jitsu. I'd say my first day I was just like your average big dumb wrestler. I rolled with Patches and he put me in a triangle and I like picked him up and almost I think I almost like killed him, and he was very nice about it. I think he just like let go or something. It was just like, bro, you cannot do that. But yeah, it's like I didn't know. It was just like a lot of panicking, right? Like I had no idea like what was going on really, especially too. It was in the gi. Like when I first originally started training at 13 Jiu Jitsu, I trained exclusively gi, right? Because I was only going there 3 days a week because it was about 45 minutes from where I was living because there was no other jujitsu in Columbia, Kentucky, where my college was. Um, and so I didn't know like I didn't like know that like there was like that much of a difference between gi and no gi. So I was just kind of training gi for the first couple of months exclusively. And Patches is super good. He's in like a random spot, I think Glasgow, Kentucky or something, just a random spot in Kentucky. I mean, he's a beast, and he took me in, and he kind of was uh, my start of like true like having a little bit of an understanding of what jujitsu was. And yeah, my first experience, like I said, is just a lot of panicking and having Patches. I had Patches who wasn't like a douchebag. Like he talked to me like he treated me like a person, and he was like, hey, we got to be calm and da 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 da. And I'm really happy with where I started all that.
Good for you, man. That's pretty awesome. I want to know this for you. We always ask this like as a follow up question, which is when did you know you fell in love with the sport? Meaning, when did you know that you actually wanted to do jujitsu as more than just a hobby? When does it become something that you're pursuing as kind of a career and really like an overall brand? If I'm being honest, just based off of how you infuse these instructionals or a lot of the way that you compose your social media is so educational. Like, when does that kind of take hold where you say, I think I know where my place in is this sport?
Yeah, so it was. I remember it was June of 2021. I did this 5 day camp for like a folk style wrestling camp in what like Western Kentucky, basically West Virginia. Um, and my girlfriend, she recorded all of the instructional like all the techniques that I taught to the kids, and then I was like, yeah, I should. I had just visited B Team too, and a guy named James Smith was like, hey, you should just post videos every day. And I was like, I don't really know what to post. And then finally, I had something to post, and so I started posting these videos every day. And then, about a month later, I had like 30,000 followers because that's just what Instagram does, really. And then I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like maybe this can become something and then I like started like selling like wrestling workout plans like on like Google Docs, and I started making some money, and I was like, oh, this is really weird. Like I'm making money from like this random thing. And then the more I got to know Chewy, the more I started to like learn. I started to like work with him on his like YouTube stuff, and then he helped me like learn how to build courses and do all this business stuff on my own. And then that's when I dropped my first instructional, and then my first instructional sold. like, I don't know, something crazy like $10,000 in the first month. And that's not normal, right? It's just kind of like because it was the first one, right? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, like I don't need to work. I was working at a coffee shop at the time. I was just like, I don't really need to work at a coffee shop anymore. Um, and so I kind of just got lucky, going to that team, that trip to B team was really good because I met James Smith. James Smith was the guy who gave me some good advice about just going out there and posting because I never really did that before. And then Chewy was kind of on the other end of that of just like helping me be like, oh, you can like build stuff on your own. Like you don't need BJJ fanatics. You don't need all these other things. You can do this stuff on your own. And here's how you do it. As long as I helped him, he would help me. And then I would say the finishing line of it all was like when I won Blue Belt Worlds, and then I lost to Pixley in the absolute final. I was like, oh, like dang, like obviously now I know Blue Belt Worlds doesn't mean much, but at the time I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm like a world champion. Like never been able to say that before. And then I kind of just like fell in love. And then I guess the cherry on top was the first ADCC Trials I did where I lost to Cal Bame. I watched the finals and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was just like, this is it for me. Like I'm pretty sold. So it wasn't just one thing, right? It was a collection of lots of little things um, that made me say like, this is what I'm going to do. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
That checks out. I mean, I'm happy you found your way. I'm a little mad that our paths in Kentucky, you were far too young to teach me how to wrestle, because
Yeah.
I lived out in Kentucky for grad school, like 2005 ish, 2006 to
Where was that?
2008. Yeah, I was at Bowling Green, Kentucky, at Western Kentucky, out
Oh,
that way.
cool.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
did.
that's one of my favorite systems. Yeah, I love Bowling
Yeah,
Green.
that was what I like to say. That was uh, my service. That was me
Yeah.
going out there because I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. So I went to go compete competitively for speech and debate. And Western Kentucky recruited me to be a coach for them. And I was so mad because I really wanted to I wanted to start grappling. I wanted to start learning it right then and there. And when I left Illinois to go to Kentucky from undergrad to grad, they opened up a gym right when I was leaving Illinois. Then as I left
Mm,
Kentucky, same thing. And I was just like, dude,
yeah.
oh my God, I'm just a little late here. So I have to ask this as we start to circle down. You have this great thing that you posted, and I'd be completely foolish if I didn't just get a little bit of perspective. It seems like you have a course about stop guessing for wrestling. And I feel like that's one of the hardest things that we have for people who are jiu-jitsu based athletes who go into wrestling. When did you kind of recognize that was something that you saw that was deterring or creating problems for jiu-jitsu folks? Because I suffer from it heavily. Like I know one of my biggest issues is I just overthink the wrestling. So where did you kind of develop that concept?
Yeah, I mean, it's circling back to like James Smith, right? It's like one of our big conversations when I was at B team was about when I start posting, it was to find my niche, right? Um, and then obviously for me, it was pretty obvious what my niche was. It was takedowns, and it's not saying that all jiu-jitsu people are bad at takedowns because that's not completely true. Just like most people think all wrestlers are bad at leg lock defense, I don't think that's completely true at all. I think anyone who puts in work can get pretty relatively good at anything relatively quickly. But the idea was like if I was going to create a course, I actually have like 10 instructionals inside of that. Originally, I was selling individual instructionals. Now I just sell it as like a package. That way, because I don't have to drop a ton of new instructionals anymore. I just kind of sell it as a huge package. Um, it was just like attack a pain point, right? Like it's like marketing 101. It's like find a pain point and sell to the pain point because if you're not solving a problem, people probably aren't going to get your instructional, especially now when there's a million instructionals out there. Um, you kind of have to differentiate a little bit. So I niched down to takedowns and like takedown defense and wrestling in general for jujitsu. And yeah, I think the big thing is like just found a niche and try to sell to it. And then try not to just be an influencer, right? Try to be someone who also competes and like shows that this stuff works in jujitsu because there's a lot of influencers, but there's not a lot of people who do the quote unquote influencing and actually compete at a high level. So my instructionals are kind of coming off the back of the mix of both of those things.
Good on you, man. I don't think you can really be called just an influencer. No. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like You've competed
Yeah.
at ADCC, our Olympics. You've competed at CJI. You're very active in what you do, and the instructionals that you put together, very very comprehensive, and they do provide a missing link that I'm happy to see you kind of taking up that steed and really doing an excellent job at it, man. Because even from your posts, very clear, very easy to understand, and the consistency has been something that I have noticed all these years. So I must pay a compliment to that, dude. But I wanted to give you an opportunity, sir, before we circle on out of here. Is there anybody that you would like to shout out? Team members, sponsors, anybody who helped you be the grappler that you were to accomplish this very cool goal of winning ADCC trials?
I mean, obviously, all of my team at Pedigo, right? Chewy, just for always supporting me, even though I don't really train with him now. He's still the guy who promotes me and does all that, right? But mostly Heath, right? He's my guy. He knows what to say to me when I'm nervous. He knows how to calm me down. He gives me a lot of opportunities. Just being a part of Daisy Fresh or PSF has meant a lot for me and gave me a lot of opportunities that I might not have had. Like being on the CJI team, getting the opportunities at like Grapple Fest and stuff like that, and being able to just train with really awesome guys who do anything for me. I love those guys. Like I can't compete at Nogi Worlds because I got a bit of an injury, but I'm gonna go fly out in a couple days just to see them and watch them compete. And I'm just grateful I have the greatest team in the world, and I'm grateful for Heath because he's the one who built it from the ground up.
I got two small questions to follow up with here, sir. The first is going to be just an informative one. You, like I hear this with the glasses, you might look a little bit better than I do with them, but there was legitimate concern though with the eye pokes and that you were wearing those goggles. And I had to say, man, I looked at that and I said, you can actually pull that off. You actually had like style off of those. So I was like, all right, cool. Have there been less eye pokes recently for you, sir?
I mean, I still wear like whenever I'm training, I wear them every day. Like I never stop wearing the goggles after I had that corneal abrasion that got infected and left me blind for a couple days. I refuse to train without goggles. I wear goggles and I wear headgear, then I wear a mouth guard. Now when I compete, I don't just because they're a bit in the way. But I tell people like for the rest of my life, I will wear goggles because um, it only takes I mean, I get man, when I tell you I get hundreds of messages about people asking like where do you get those goggles? I got my eye hurt. I need to wear goggles. Boxing guys, MMA guys, jiu-jitsu guys, wrestlers. It sucks because eye injuries are a really big thing and like goggles look goofy as hell, but um, you don't have to wear them in competition. Like I don't wear them in competition anymore, but you just gotta it seems stupid until something like really traumatic happens to you, and then you're just like, well, I don't want that to happen again. And so I'll never stop wearing the goggles for the rest of my life. I love grappling, but I don't love it enough to like risk my eyes anymore. And after I had that really bad experience a couple years ago, it's been like my Bible for me. I always keep it with me.
Good for you, man. That again, I figured it had to be pretty severe. I didn't know exactly how long your vision was impaired to what extent, so I'm glad you're okay and you're able to see. But you say goofy. I do think you look better than most people in them. So I will say
Thanks.
it's a tough look, but I think maybe the credibility of being able to get takedowns and wear the goggles goes a far way. So you just fit the profile of it. So there is that. But the second thing I wanted to ask as we close up here is going to be at ADCC, what would a win mean for you there, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really important tournament, right? I think it's really cool. It would mean everything, right? It'd be awesome. It would justify a lot of the stuff that I do, right? Like I don't know. I just try to be one of those guys where I'm like, I don't take steroids. I don't do anything. I don't cheat. I'm just doing everything I'm trying to do everything the right way. So it's like I kind of would love to win and then just be like, yeah, I mean, I know I did it the right way, no matter what anyone thinks. And I think that's more important to me than anything. And uh, I don't know. I think also the next best thing would be like it'd be cool to I don't know represent PSF and represent Heath and so I don't know like hopefully that helps Heath and his career with whatever seminars other stuff like that. I just want to kind of give back and I've won a lot of stuff in my life, so I don't think that I'll ever I don't know. I don't think that a win will like necessarily change much for me personally, but I think it could be a big statement for either some of the people around me or some of the stuff that we do. And um, I think it would be cool. Obviously, winning ADCC would also probably give me a lot of opportunities with like seminars and instructionals and stuff like that. So money matters, and anyone who says it doesn't is kind of crazy. So that would be great. But obviously, like I don't. I think Grapple Fest will probably be my next competition in February. So uh, that's the most important thing for me. And it's like I really hope I win that. So I think it'll hopefully be like a Grapple Fest title match. I don't know, not confirmed yet, but it seems like that's what's probably going to be. And that would be awesome. And ADCC is a stepping stone, and I'll take it one day at a time. Hopefully, if that happens, I can tell you how it felt.
Well, I look forward to hearing about that. And, sir, I thank you for your time. And, the only last observation I had for you was I know you mentioned that you used to work at a coffee shop. And I would
Yeah.
be remiss if I didn't say I could tell that based off of the tiniest of cups that you had. When you told me off
Oh
air you
yeah.
were going to be making some coffee,
Yeah.
this is not just your everyday coffee.
Yeah.
It looked so when you say you made it, did you make it from scratch? And if so, what is the coffee order that you do for yourself?
No, I mean, just normal thing. Like, you pour it yourself, you do everything, but it's not from scratch. It's pretty easy. It's just black double
Mm,
espresso. Nothing fancy. Had a latte this morning, but caffeine addict as most jujitsu people are. But nothing fancy. I love double espresso if I can.
good man. I mean, listen, right here, same thing. So we're
Oh,
on
that's a
the.
thick cup.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Merchandising here. You're completely on the
Yeah.
same side. Hey, Brandon, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. We'll put a pin on this conversation for now, but I'm hoping in the near future we can do this again, especially if you got something cool that happens in ADCC. We're hoping the best for you, man. You've been a warm presence, and the way that I have mentioned earlier, you have been so kind to describe your wrestling journey and encourage people in a very positive way to go about their jujitsu and wrestling, I feel is very, very appreciated. I think there's a lot of people who like looking at somebody who approaches it the way that you do it. So keep doing the great work, man. It's so good to see you having an incredible run, and I can't wait to see what you accomplish in 2026, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. My thanks to Brandon Reed for joining us today on this episode of the Grappling Hour. Good guy. Really like his jujitsu. I mean, big fan of his takedown game. And I've stolen a couple things from. I didn't tell him that in the interview. Just a couple things. Borrowed. Genius. Genius is steal, though. I don't know if I'm a genius. Definitely not a genius at wrestling. So we'll say borrowed. But my thanks to you guys for watching. A couple quick things. First and foremost, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this video wherever you're watching. And I promised you a prompt. Let's do this. How have you found you have been able to get out of your way of yourself in wrestling? Meaning, if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, what have you done to make it so that you don't overthink your wrestling game? So that's the question we're going to put for you guys in the comment section. Answer as you may need to do. Brandon's done a whole series of coursework off of that, and he's found his niche. So I'd love to hear your approaches on how you've been able to battle that, because I know a lot of jiu-jitsu people do. I do for sure. There's still a lot of second guessing on my wrestling game, and we're getting to the point where the wrestling game is probably going to disappear. I'm getting old AF by the day, my friends. So there's that. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also check us out at Grappling Hour at Patreon. So that's patreon.com/grappling hour. $5 a month. See these interviews 30 days before anybody else. And for a few extra dollars, see extra bonus content not available anywhere else, including tape studies, roast raff, and yes, additional episodes that you're not going to find anywhere else. That is at patreon.com/grappling hour. Get you some grappling hour merch. Head on over to rafasparza.com/merch. Get you a hoodie, a tank top, a t-shirt, whatever fits your bill. It really does help us, and every cent you invest goes right back into this show. So it really does mean a lot to us here as we especially try to do bigger and better things in the coming year of 2026. And last but not least, if you want to continue the discussions we have here at the show, check us out on our Discord at Grappling Hour. All right, ladies and gents, that's going to do it for us here today. My thanks for tuning in and listening to a great episode, or watching, wherever it is you ingest this material. My name is Rafa Esparza. It's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats.
Perfect.